everyone, welcome to Buckle Up Podcast. I'm Natalia Earl and I'm a certified business and life coach that loves talking to people. I'm fascinated by humans and how our brain works. What is it that makes a decision good or bad, and how does that decision ultimately shape our path and destiny? Everyone loves to talk about success, but what about the flip side? How about adversity, failure? It's such a big and often necessary part of life, and it's simply unavoidable. So I invite you to join me on this inspiring, honest, unpolished interview show with breathtakingly real conversations that go deep on setbacks and hardships that are part of the puzzle that ultimately lead to growth, discovery of inner greatness, and what makes us resilient. Grab your helmet and buckle up, people. It's going to be a bumpy ride, but what a ride it will be. Today I sat down with Simeon Etoria, who is a loving, caring, and inspirational life and well-being coach. Simeon's gift is listening and speaking with individuals or groups who struggle with knowing their strengths, obstacles, and self-worth. With his guidance, Simeon assists in moving his clients forward, opening their eyes to see that they can step into a fulfilling lifestyle that serves their well-being, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. Through guided practices and techniques, Simeon helps us remember who we truly are, our purpose, and how to find the love within ourselves that we all continuously search for throughout our lives. What is the biggest adversity that you have faced personally, and how did you overcome it?
I would say the biggest adversity I faced was addiction. And what does it come down to addiction? Mine was of sexual addiction. But before that, it was of suffering. And I hear this from a coach that I've dealt with. It says, I'm addicted to my suffering. I love my misery. And a lot of us in this world are addicted to that. When things are going so well, we self-sabotage because we're just so used to what we've been. One might have been born into, what we just put into our vortex of seeing over and over and over. So mine was coming out of that space of being able to see the trauma that I've gone through has actually impacted the habits and the actions that I was taking. I was like, wow, my gosh, it's like, this is why I'm doing this. So yeah, I would say that was probably the hardest one of going through that space and coming out the end of that, because actually, you know what it led me to? It led me to contemplating suicide. And that's where it was at. So I would say that was the biggest adversity I had to come over. So that was a challenging one. I was in a bathroom. When our bathroom we had, there was no window in there. So and when I'm talking about deep, dark depression, I'm taking baths with no lights on. I'm just in the dark, pitch black. And this is how I want it. It's like I found love in the darkest spaces of my life. So it's like, I don't want light. I don't want anything else. I just want to be here, because my mind was still like, am I going to do this, or what's going on? It's like, it's easier to end it, right? So having the ability to start going within myself in the morning time of giving myself first, and I was always giving myself outside of myself. And another coach, Donna, beautiful person, we have a phone call just talking about this week of like going in and turning into the love inside of ourselves, because we're always looking outside of ourselves with rushing and going by that space. So it took me to get to the point of finding my space in the morning, of giving some space to me, which I was not used to, because that people-pleasing thing is it's one thing.
And it totally goes back to our childhood. But do you believe, like, throughout not only your journey, but now that you're coaching people and doing these seminars, do you find that most of the wiring and the life lessons happen to us in our childhood?
Oh, yes. So a lot has happened in our childhood. And then there's a beautiful saying that says, where your attention goes, energy flows. So even if it's not in childhood, over time, wherever you put your attention to, that's what's going to gain the momentum. So it says 40 to 60% of our choices in a day is habit. So if we're programming ourselves over and over and over to specifically believe this one thing, like this limited belief, I'm putting all my attention here. So 40 to 60%, let's say, for instance, your pants leg that you put in, which leg do you feel that you put in the first? It's the same one every time. When you brush your teeth, you don't got to think about it. When you drive, you don't got to think about it. When you tie your shoes, you don't have to think about it. So 40 to 60% of our attention is going here. Absolutely. Some wiring that has happened when we're children, but then what happens, we're unconsciously every day, continuously doing the same thing over and over and over. So, yes, the program begins as a child. And I love that you asked that question because one of my limited beliefs when I was a child is that I was stupid because
Mm-hmm.
I was told I couldn't speak well, and I couldn't read well. I failed the first grade. I was put in speech class. I was put in remedial classes. But you know what? Throughout my entire life, I carried that. But when I realized it today, it's like, that's not my labels that I'm carrying anymore. Someone else as a child gave me that, but eventually I was able to see it. You could break that because attention changes from what someone else put onto you. You don't have to accept it. My attention changed somewhere else. So our attention goes, energy flows. You could break those. But absolutely, yes, when we're children, you're born into a household. You have mom, dad, or one grandparent, whatever, guardian, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're learning their beliefs. You come into the world, you're innocent. You ball of joy. You're learning their beliefs. You go from your household when it comes time to go to school. Now you're in a building full of everyone else's beliefs. Not. I had a discussion recently with someone else. Is the fact that when it comes down to the point, a lot of women tell men, "I want to see your vulnerable side." But then when they show the vulnerable side, it's like, wait, hold on. That's too much vulnerability. So us as men is like, we get stuck in this concept is like, I can't share with you because then you're going to look at me as I'm weak. But we had this discussion, like I said, we realized that if someone says, if a woman tells you they want to see your vulnerability and they feel that way, that's their own hurt or wounded child inside. That's like, hey, I don't want to see that. But then that's their own wounded child. But if a man's like, oh, I don't want to share this, is that's your wounded child. It's like coming out of that space and going to the space, you're like, I'm a functional adult. I'm going to share what's going on within myself or what's currently going on. So something you just said a while ago. The beautiful part about it, say you said in your early 40s, and you said, I really feel like I'm starting now.
Mm-hmm.
Only time is now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're saying all the stuff that we've gone through, and I love sharing this because everything, all the adversities we've been through has only prepared you for your now, where you're at right now, which you're being aware of your now. As I told you, I was told I couldn't speak well, I couldn't write well, I couldn't read well. All I did is look and say, I switched the story. And I said, my God, you put that adversity in the first portion of my life so I could be prepared for when I'm coming forward and I'm speaking in front of the audience because you knew I had to work over here. That's adversity
Right.
I had. I couldn't speak well. Now it's here. It's like it's a game changer when you switch the story. It's like, wait, I've been feeling like this not smart, this is unintelligent kid my entire life, stuck in this wounded child for so long. But when you find that awareness and you build that foundation, all adversity you've been through, that's just been the foundation of God, universe, energy, source, has been preparing you to say, I've been building you as a warrior. Now it's time for you to come here and do the work. So I think that was the beautiful thing that you just said a while ago is starting now. That was beautiful. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. I agree with you. I definitely agree with you. And I also believe that God doesn't call qualified, right? He qualifies the called. So once you recognize that power inside of you and the guidance that you have and the powers that you have, I think that's when we truly become limitless, because limits
Yes.
again are our beliefs.
Yes. 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 And there's one thing that I just finished reading the book, Forgiveness, The Greatest Healer of All by Gerald Jampolsky. And at the end of the book, it says to live in our purpose. Mm-hmm. When you said the whole thing of like living our purpose and doing things that we enjoy, things that bring us to life. And it says the purpose is to teach love, for we are only, and for all, that's all we are, is love. And one of the hardest questions for people to answer when we're talking about coaching and going through the process, like you're aware of what's going on and everything.
So Simeon, if someone was going through the similar journey as you, what your advice to them would be? Slow down.
Slow down. That's the first step. I would say slow down because our mind, all those thoughts, especially the fact that I have this thing with age. And the reason why I say I have this thing with age, I hear from people that are in 20s, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm like, you're 20. Sit down somewhere. If you were in your 50s or 60s, you're like, oh my gosh, life just passed me by. I said, if you continue living back there, what do you think is going to happen to you? So when I said looking in the mirror of not seeing myself, it was like 10 years past. And it's like, how did I get here? So in our now, we're physically always in our now, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. We could be in our past, we could be in our future, 50 to 70,000 thoughts, right? So one thing I tell people is slow down, because when you slow this down, those thoughts start slowing down, time starts slowing down. You're living in it now. The average female, average male lives to be 75 years old. So if you're in 50, do you want to live 25 miserable years, or do you want to live 25 quality years?